something here is amiss, right? Something doesn't sound the way it should sound. So Riding Hood, Little Red is obviously something wrong. And you could say that Little Red Riding Hood is a popular phrase, and that's why reordering the words sounds wrong. But Elephant Purple also doesn't sound correct, doesn't sound right, right? So Elephant Purple isn't what you're expecting to see when you're talking about purple elephants. So the thing is that English has prepositive adjectives. That means the adjectives go before the nouns. Now, not every language is like this. Like Polish, for example, has prepositive adjectives. Also my native Bulgarian, German, Chinese, many other languages do. But some languages don't. They have post-positive adjectives. Those are notably the Romance languages, which are Italian, French, Spanish, but also Arabic and Persian. So in these cases, the adjectives follow the nouns. So the correct way to say these in English would, of course, be Little Red Riding Hood and Purple Elephant. But if you are speaking other languages, like, for example, Spanish, Caperucita Roja, and in French, it will be Éléphant Violet. Like adjectives after nouns. We do have certain cases where we can have post-positive adjectives in English, and that's when we want to sound archaic or poetic, like the sounds of ghosts unseen or something. And also when we use borrowed phrases like heir apparent or terra incognita. But there was also another part of the title which didn't sound correct. Bad Big Wolf. Now, we all know it's a big bad wolf, right? So it's not as wrong as Elephant Purple, but certainly not very right, right? So the thing is that humans, and in this case I don't mean English in particular, but human beings as a whole prefer a certain order of adjectives, which is described by the friendly acronym GSACPM. So that basically means general opinion, specific opinion, size, shape, age, color, origin, material. That's the way human beings basically prefer to receive information. GSACPM, remember it. It's very handy. You'll need it every day of your lives. So that's why, for example, a big brown wooden spoon sounds correct to us, and any other permutation like a wooden brown big spoon or a brown big wooden spoon makes us sound like a maniac. It's crazy. There are exceptions to GSACPM in English, and those are mainly governed by specificity. And by that I mean the more specific an adjective is, the closer to the noun it goes. This is especially true for idioms. For example, last straw is an idiom. Last and straw together means something completely different than apart. So this would be used always together, even though last is I don't know which part of GSACPM describes last, but I should consult it. So also there are like idiom-like phrases. Big spender, for example, even though it has a literal meaning, it's an established phrase. So this is a big evil man, but an evil big spender. So if you're paying attention, though, you should have noticed that Big Bad Wolf actually violates GSACPM. So it should be like bad is an opinion and big is size, so it should be Bad Big Wolf, according to what I've been saying so far. But there is also this thing called ablaut reduplication. So that means that in certain languages, certain order of vowels just sounds better. And that's why in English we have I, A, O, and we have certain orders of vowels that sound good to us. For example, hip-hop and not hop-hip, and tit for tat and not tat for tit. Well, in some cases we do have tat for tit, but that's another story. So now we have a small interlude. And I'm actually going to talk about C++. So in C++, you could have an integer, an int. You can apply like different modifiers to it, like unsigned int, and also const int, and uh-oh. So is anyone here familiar with the East Coast, West Coast controversy in American hip-hop? Sure, we all know this. So, is anyone here familiar with the east const, west const controversy in modern C++? Well, for those who aren't, this is basically the argument where const should sit when it modifies a variable. Now, if it's before the variable, then it's west const, it's to the west. If it's after the variable, then it's east const, because it's to the east. And some people would say that east const has won. Like, there have been multiple repositories who have switched from west, which is the old way. Many of us are used to writing like this. And east const is basically the new way, and many repositories have switched to east const. And some people would say east const has clearly won. But the thing is, English is the lingua franca of software engineering. And I know this is kind of ironic, because lingua franca means French language in Italian. But anyway, programming is still made for human beings. Well, still, unless some kind of artificial intelligence finally starts doing our jobs, and then we can basically relax and get killed by robots. But until then, we still write code. So, and great effort is put into educating people in writing code in readable manner, and manner which is easily processed by humans. And even the last talk was about that precise thing. Humans matter. Humans need to process the information in code. And of course, if you look at code like you would look at language, which is the whole goal here, you can have an int, which is a noun. You can have an unsigned int, which is an idiom-like phrase, for example. You could have a const int, and it's correct English. You could have const unsigned int, it would still be correct, because of the idiom-like phrase. And of course, this is incomprehensible gibberish. And some people would say, well, you could interpret it differently. You could say that int is not an adjective, that int is an adjective and const is a noun. And so int const will be an integer constant in a way. But clearly that violates the entire logic behind C++, because this is a constant method. It's not a method constant or something. Like, clearly const is an adjective in terms of C++. I've even heard people, well, what if const is a verb, for example? But verbs, in English at least, go before the I know, the subjects. It's not German, like they go the opposite way, like Germans are crazy, you know. You know that, I know, I'm sure. So unless you're French or, I don't know, Shakespearean, clearly west const is the only way to go. And also, there's this movement within the west const community, which is, why don't we call it const west? Because, you know, const goes first, right? So const west clearly sounds right. But it doesn't. It violates GSACPM. It violates upload reduplication. And basically, const west, in my personal opinion, is only adequate for, I guess, the latest baby of Kanye and Kim. So, west const, everybody. And given that I have more time, I can do another lightning talk if you want. Do you want another lightning talk? Sure. Oh. Okay. If you want, we can talk about it later, but I think most of the people here have come for the comedy. But if there's more time, oh my God. Okay, so here goes. Hi, I'm Borislav, and I hail from the glorious country of Bulgaria, where we have crouching Slavs, abandoned flying saucers, cycling-friendly cities, and everything else. We Bulgarians are proud people, and we only love 4 things in this world. Our tremendous history, of course, our hard liquors, our moussaka, which is only the best dish in like ever, and our baked peppers. And remember the baked peppers because I will get back to those. Many of you are perhaps familiar with our glorious past, but there, and this is also part of it, of course, but some of you, and given that we're in Poland, you're almost certainly familiar about an inglorious part of our past. Basically, from 1945 until 1989, Bulgaria was a communist country. We were friends with these guys. And in these sad years of Bulgaria's history, there was a single consumer product developed in Bulgaria, the chushkupek. It literally translates as pepper baker. And yes, it is true that is the only consumer product which was designed and developed in Bulgaria entirely. But the chushkupek is actually a very fine device. It's used to bake peppers. You put raw peppers in, you pull baked peppers out. It's marvelous. It's genius. And chushkupek has become a staple of the Bulgarian household. And this here, to your left, is a very famous Bulgarian singer in a genre that you might know as disco polo, but in Bulgaria we call it something else. And they have a chushkupek. They're very happy about it. But then came 2013, where these guys developed this thing. You see what I'm talking about? Chushkupek, Mac Pro. Exhibit A, Exhibit B. Marvelous Bulgarian industrial design, pathetic American theft. So, if anyone from the audience is perhaps working in Apple, please rename your product to the only appropriate name, the Mac Chushkupek. Thank you, everybody. Spread the word, Chushkupek.